Good afternoon and happy new month. Welcome to African Economy, a 30-minute business program where we examine the trends, policies and developments shaping Africa's evolving landscape. I am Wang Fonabasi Walter, your host on the program. Here's what we have for you today. World Bank commits $550 million in Tanzania jobs and social support push. Ghana's $100 airport levy pushes up airfares as airlines pass cost to passengers. Ethiopia edges closer to nuclear power with a major Russian deal. We also look at CBN orders on banks and fintechs to submit cybersecurity report in 3 weeks. Let's start today by tracking development in the currency market, focusing mainly on the US dollar in relation to other African currencies. The US dollar Nigerian exchange rates rose to 1,380 naira per US dollar, up to 0.07%. The US dollar South African rand is at 17 rand per US dollar, up to 1.18%. The US dollar Zambian kwacha fell to 19 kwacha per US dollar, and the US dollars against the Egyptian pound rose to 54 pound per US dollar, up to 1.55%. The US dollar's Algerian naira rose to 1,300 per US dollar, up to 0.22%. And the US dollars against the Angolan kwanza is at 918 kwanza per US dollar, with no much value in changes. Away from that, the Central Bank of Nigeria has directed banks and other financial institutions to submit detailed report on the cybersecurity framework within 3 weeks in a move to strengthen oversight and safeguard the financial system against rising digital threat. In a circular to deposit money banks, payment service banks, microfinance banks, fintechs and other regulated entities, the Apex Bank announced the deployment of a cybersecurity self-assessment tool to evaluate institutions' resilience to cyber risks. Joining me to discuss this issue is the National President of the Association of Mobile Money and Bank Agents in Nigeria. Welcome to the program, Mr. Obioha Oti. Welcome to the program, Mr. Obioha Oti. Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear us?
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the program.
You're welcome, ma'am.
All right. We understand that the central bank has given banks and other financial institutions just a few weeks to submit detailed cybersecurity report amid growing concerns over digital threat in Nigeria. Talk to us about this move by the central bank. What does it mean? Hello, good afternoon, Mr. Obioha. Are you with us?
Why I'm disturbing is that the name we are mentioning now, that's not my name. That's where I'm a little bit disturbed.
Mr. Obioha, are you with us?
You didn't understand what I'm saying now.
We apologize for that mix-up there. Now we are going to be joined by the National President of the Association of Mobile Banks, who is going to unpack to us what the Central Bank of Nigeria has said about the cybersecurity report amid the growing concerns of digital threat in Nigeria. Very soon we are going to be joined by him. But let's go to another concern. We also look at the risk. Once he joins us, we also look at the significance of the risk of the cyber attacks to the stability of financial system soon. We'll take a quick break, and when we return, we'll look at that. Stay with us. Thank you so much for staying with us. Before we went on the break because of the technical glitches, we told you that the CBN has announced the deployment of a cybersecurity self-assessment tool to evaluate institutions' resilience to cyber risks. And joining me to discuss this issue is the National President of Association of Mobile Money and Banks Agents in Nigeria, Mr. Obioha Oti. Welcome to African Economy, Mr. Obioha.
Thank you. Thank you for having me once again.
All right. Mr. Obioha, we understand that the CBN has given banks and other institutions just a few weeks to submit detailed cybersecurity report amid growing concerns over digital threat. Talk to us about this move by the CBN. What does it mean?
Okay, though it's not very clear. I guess you are trying to find out what the CBN are.
Yeah, what does it mean? Can you hear us clearly right now?
Okay, so there are two things we are looking at here now. We are looking at the cybersecurity directive and also the directive on cross-border transactions and the funds remittance. So now let's look at the first one. What the CBN is actually demanding for is number one, regular cybersecurity assessment, vulnerability testing, stronger internal control, and a clear incident reporting framework. Now, one thing is very clear. You know that in today's digital world, any bank or financial institution that doesn't have a strong cybersecurity, you can just liken it to a physical bank that has an open vault. Anybody can easily penetrate and help himself. Okay? So, now, every financial institution, no matter how complex or how simple you are, is prone to a certain level of, threat. So, banks are supposed to be aware of the level of threat that is facing them within the financial system. So, that is what the CBN is asking banks to do. CBN wants the bank to be proactive instead of being reactive. Because if you check recently, I need to tell you, I'm not going to mention the names of the financial institutions involved. Here in Nigeria, a lot of funds, a lot of money has gone down as a result of cybersecurity attacks recently. So now, the CBN directive dated as far back as 2004, May. Now, that directive has been on ground, but many of these financial institutions have not been putting it in proper perspective. So the CBN wants a stricter observance of those directives so that at least we can protect the funds of depositors and also strengthen the financial system.
All right. So, Mr. Obioha, looking at the time frame, now the CBN is asking banks to comply within just 3 weeks or to 5 weeks. How realistic is this timeline, and what does it tell us about the urgency of the situation?
the
Hello,
aspect of cyber security before I go to diaspora resistance policy. So ordinarily, banks don't have to wait for the CBN to police them around before they do the needful. It's just like you have a house, and after building your house where you and your family will live, you expect the government or police to tell you that you must put a gate or that you must put a door and put a lock to make the house safe and secure for you and your family. It doesn't make sense. So the CBN directive on this didn't just start in 2026. It is dated as far back as 1st of May 2024. You know, so now since 2024 till now, it's almost about how many years? 2 years plus. Okay, so what happens is that many banks already have done what they are supposed to do. So many banks and the fintech and some other financial institutions, they've done what they are supposed to do. But the central bank wants everybody to always test and retest their system, because the more you take care to make sure that your cyber security is intact, the same thing, those people who want to attack you are also evolving. Okay, so the preparation you put in place today does not guarantee your safety tomorrow, because the threats are evolving. All the people that are involved within the system are all changing. So what the central bank is saying is that from time to time, look at your system that you have put in place and make sure that everything is in order. Now, let me talk a little bit about diaspora inflow, because you also mentioned it earlier. So everything is all about trust. If the people don't trust the system, they cannot put their funds there. And you can think with me that the diaspora inflow to the Nigerian economy constitutes a large chunk, of the liquidity within the FX system. So everything that the CBN is emphasizing is all about trust, transparency, and security.
Okay, talking about the average Nigerian, because more of Nigerians, they use banking system. What impact could this have on how they use the services? Should they expect any concerns or changes?
Should they expect what?
Any changes or concerns?
No. Most of these happen at the back end. And the good news is that many Nigerian financial institutions are already aware, of the importance of strengthening their cyber security and the importance of making sure that there is reasonable trust within the system. So the only thing is that the financial system, is within the regulatory purview of the CBN to make sure that it's always strong. So many of the players, banks, the fintech, the telcos, everybody playing within the system, does everything they can from time to time to ensure that they comply. So what happened is that I'm not seeing the financial institutions maybe increasing charges on the transactions, or maybe making the process more cumbersome or more difficult for the average users. The only thing that I'm seeing is like maybe an additional layer of security may be added to especially digital system. For instance, two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication, the use of token for mostly corporate accounts, which has always been in existence. Okay. Then also, the central bank wants the users, and that's the customers of the banks, those who move money around, to patronize the formal system. A lot of informal transactions are going on outside the formal system. For instance, a greater chunk of diaspora remittances go through the cryptocurrency platform, which does not go through the central system. And all these are prone to fraud and a lot of cyber attacks and all that. So the central bank wants all these things to be properly organized by the financial institutions. At least the depositors and all the players within the financial system will be secured.
Okay, now, according to the CBN, they've also warned that false or misleading submissions will breach the Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act. That's the BOFIA 2020, the law that empowers the
Sorry,
regulator.
I can't hear you clearly.
Can you hear me now, Mr. Obioha?
That's better.
Okay. Now, the CBN also warned that false or misleading submissions, as you've said, will breach the bank, that's the BOFIA Act 2020, a law that empowers the regulator to impose sanctions ranging from heavy financial penalties. How confident are you that the CBN can truly enforce compliance across all these institutions?
Anyway, I know that the CBN has what it takes to enforce compliance. The CBN has been doing that for quite some time now. So enforcing compliance on the financial system is not a factor of individuals maybe walking into the system and carrying out this physically. Okay? So the CBN has processes and procedures that they can use to do this digitally. Okay? And I know that if the CBN does not have the capacity to enforce compliance, the CBN will not be making the rules and will not be threatening sanctions. Okay? But if you ask me, I will tell you that the banks, they have more incentive within themselves to make sure that their system remains secure than waiting for the CBN to come and threaten them and then waiting for the central bank to come and enforce compliance before they actually try to comply. Now, one of the challenges that they have is for the institutions that fail to comply according to the directive of the CBN. One of the problems is that within the system, there are people, maybe part of the staff, part of their maybe third-party service provider, waiting for the system to be vulnerable in order to take advantage of the system. So you don't even have to wait for the CBN to come and police you around before you make sure that your system is very, very strong. But on the part of the CBN, I'm very, very sure that CBN has the capacity and the will to make sure that every financial institution within the Nigerian financial system complies accordingly.
I so much love your perspective, Mr. Obioha. But before I let you go, I would like you to briefly touch on this. The CBN Bank has said that money sent from Nigerians living abroad, called diaspora remittances, can no longer be paid in foreign currencies. Instead, the money must go through certain Naira accounts in Nigerian banks and will be paid out in Naira. What does this change mean for Nigerians receiving money from abroad, and could it affect how people chose to send or receive remittances?
Looking at this, I can only talk on the aspect of where it affects the Nigerian economy. You know, when Nigerians do transactions in foreign currency, especially the US dollar, it has a way of actually affecting the economy because of the fact that the US dollar is a global currency. Okay? So now, for the central bank to say, if you want to receive inflow, you have to receive it in Naira. What the central bank is trying to do is to encourage the growth of the Nigerian currency, which is the Nigerian Naira. Many people may want to receive directly with USD, which may be beneficial to the individual actually at the point of receiving the currency, but it may not be beneficial to the economy at large. Now, we know that the universal currency for most international transactions is the US dollar. So the central bank is not actually using diaspora remittances, but the central bank is only trying to find a way to ensure that international transactions or diaspora remittances does not weaken the Nigerian economy, but it strengthens it, and also the players in the system also get value for their money without actually being exposed to either exchange rate or other fluctuations within the system.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Obioha, the National President of Association of Mobile Money and Bank Agents in Nigeria, Mr. Obioha Oti. Thank you so much for joining us today and helping us make sense of these important developments. We really appreciate your time and insight.
Thank you so much. But I just have to keep this in. It's actually Dr. Obioha Oti, not Mr.
Oh,
Thank you. I'll be
Doctor,
happy to be with you next time. God
Doctor,
bless you.
Dr.
Yes.
Bioha Oti, all right. When a country's currency depreciates dramatically against major global currencies such as the US dollar, it frequently reflects underlying economic pressures or external shocks that can affect numerous sectors of the economy. One of the most direct impacts of a weak currency is an increase in import prices. Many African countries rely substantially on imported items such as gasoline and machinery, medications, and some food supplies. Now, when the domestic currency depreciates, these imports become more expensive in local terms. Now, this cost increases or are frequently passed on to consumers, adding to the increased inflation and diminishing household purchasing power. Currency depreciation has a significant impact on businesses as companies rely on imported raw materials or equipment may find their operational costs rise when the local currency decreases. However, this can erode profit margins, cause enterprises to raise prices, and in some situations result in lower production levels. With that said, let's look at the 10 African countries with the weakest currency in March 2026. Top on the screen is Sao Tome and Principe with 22,881 US dollars a currency value. Second is Sierra Leone with 20,969. Third on the list is Guinea. Fourth is Madagascar. 5 is Uganda. 6th is Burundi with 2,970.41 US dollars a currency value. 8 is Democratic Republic of Congo. And 9 is Malawi. Last is Rwanda, and the list with 1,460.25 US dollar as a currency value. And with that, we wrap up today's edition of African Economy. We are grateful for your viewership. Be sure to follow us across all our social media platforms at Spectrum Television. Remember, African Economy airs live every Tuesday and Thursday at 2:30 p.m. Until next time, keep thinking growth, keep thinking progress, because this is where Africa's economy speaks. I am Wangfona Basi Bota. Goodbye, Africa.